Welcome to the Just Josh podcast. I am Josh. This is my podcast today. I'm going to talk about purpose. If you remember last time, I talked about identity and how incredibly important that is. If you did not watch that, please go back and watch it because I think this is so incredibly important. If you know me, if you've heard me preach before, or just had a conversation with me probably more than 2 or 3 times, you've probably heard me talk about identity and purpose. And I just think this is so incredibly important that we get this. And the sooner you get it, I think the better your life is going to end up being. So I'm going to start this purpose conversation with a quick story. I graduated from high school, Maranatha Christian Academy, 2004. Yes, I am that old. When I was in high school, the Fast and Furious movies came out. So the very first one. So if you want to get an idea of how old I am, but I guess I'm still relevant because they just made, I think the 10th one was last summer, wasn't it? Like recently. So they're still making them. I wouldn't have thought that. I loved the first one, did not expect them to keep making it 20 years later. But here we are. So I saw the Fast and Furious movie. So when I graduated from high school and I went down to ORU for college, it's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Shout out to the Golden Eagles. But I bought a Cavalier. It was the only car that my family could afford, really. And it was a base model Chevy Cavalier. It was a manual transmission, though, so it was fun. And I was like, oh, yeah, like Fast and Furious. I'll just soup it up, put a lot of money into it, make it a really cool, fast car that people aren't really expecting, like those Honda Civics in Fast and Furious. What I realized quickly is why they were robbing those DVD players and things from DVD players. What a funny thought now. The electronics that they were stealing from these trailers, these trucks, because it's expensive to fix up cars and actually make them go fast and make vroom noises and sound cool and look cool. So I never really got to do that to my Cavalier, but it was a manual transmission. I had some fun with it. It was a base model car. It was really good, like under 60 miles an hour. Once you started going above like 65, 70, it would like start to shake a little bit and just did not enjoy those speeds. My sophomore year in college, the clutch was starting to go out. And so my brother-in-law at the time was able to, he worked on cars, so he was able to fix it for me. But it meant that he was going to have my car for the weekend, and I was going to take his Mustang. Now, this Mustang, I'm not that impressed with Fords. Mustangs, hit or miss, whatever. But this was one. This was a 5.0. This was an early 90s Mustang. It was a 5.0, though, but it had work done to it to be fast. And I was excited to get to drive his car because I was like, oh, yeah, I get to drive an actual fast car this time. So I back out of his driveway, and it just feels like it's like gonna die. Like it just doesn't sound like it's running that smooth as I'm going through his neighborhood. And honestly, I was kind of disappointed. Like, what's going on? Like, did you build this engine yourself? Because maybe you messed something up. But then I took a right-hand turn onto the freeway and just took off. And I've never gone through the gears so fast in my life. I was speeding before I could know. I had to back down a little bit. I didn't want to get in trouble. But the car just ran so smooth at high speeds. And it just, in that moment, God spoke to me and just kind of said like, hey, the Cavalier that you had was built for fuel efficiency. It was built to get you from point A to point B with using as little amount of gas as possible. Even the shifting was so that you could, shift sooner and save fuel, where this Mustang was built for speed. And so this Mustang wasn't super happy when it was going slow, but it drove fast really, really well. And what God spoke to me is, you were created for a purpose, and you will never be satisfied, fulfilled, happy in life outside of that purpose, outside of your God-given created purpose. And at the time, I was a sophomore in college. I just completed my freshman year, and it did not go how I wanted to go. I just felt out of place. I went to school to be a youth pastor, so I was a theology major at ORU, and it just wasn't great. And I thought, maybe college wasn't for me, but I should do it. I had the lowest GPA I've ever had in my life, which college is harder than high school, so I put the same effort into college as I did to high school, and it didn't work out very well. But I just felt really out of place, unsure. Some of my least favorite classes were my theology classes, which maybe sounds bad. Sorry, I shouldn't admit that, but it just didn't feel right. Like I was in the right spot. And so I felt like I was out of my purpose. And so I felt like that Cavalier at high speed or that Mustang at slow speeds. And I felt like life was a little more difficult than it needed to be. I'm not saying life's going to be easy, but if you have the Holy Spirit inside of you, sometimes you can tell and you can feel, and sometimes we make life more difficult on us than it needs to be because we're not in our God-given purpose. And so what I did was I just went to my dorm room and just prayed and was like, God, what am I supposed to do then if this isn't right? Like, I wanted to be a youth pastor because I was like, I want to help people. I want to serve the Lord as much as possible. How do you do that? Well, you become a pastor, of course. God doesn't need every Christian to be a pastor. In fact, he needs good Christians out in the world, living a life, working a job. If all the good Christians are in church, then who's in the world, right? And maybe that's why we see the world in the place that it's in right now. Maybe there's not enough Christians, enough good Bible-believing Christians who want to help people in politics, in music, in Hollywood, at Best Buy or Target, right? Like, is there enough in the corporate world? Are there enough people that love God and love people and want to serve him and his people out in the field? Or are all the good people trying to work in a church? And so that's something that's very passionate of mine. If you know me, you know that I now work at a church. But at that time, it set my course to a different direction. I prayed about it. The Holy Spirit reminded me of Psalms 37:4, which is a verse I heard a lot growing up as a kid. Delight yourself in the Lord, he will give you desires of your heart. And I just remember thinking, okay, what are the desires then? What are the God-given desires that he's put inside of me? And how can he help me fulfill that? And so I just thought about, like, what are the desires? What could I do? What would I do if I could do anything and earn a paycheck? What would I do? I was like, I'm gonna talk about sports. I would love that. I don't know if that was realistic or not, but I looked. There was a broadcast journalism degree that I could get at ORU, so I switched to that. Started writing for the school paper, taking mass media communications classes. Learned about cameras and speaking on camera, but also like the behind the scenes of how to run a camera, and it really changed the trajectory of my life. And I'm not working in that field right now. I did for a long time to different degrees. Right now, I actually am in youth ministry, young adult ministry at my church, which is interesting. But I will say that path that set me on set me where I was supposed to go and what I was supposed to do. And I think there's a lot more to it. I'm 38 years old, so I do think I have a lot of life left to live. And there's some things that I'm going to accomplish. And I do believe that my degree and what I learned will help me in things going forward. And I do believe that I was in the right place. And so that idea of you were created for a purpose, I was like, the rest of school was a lot easier for me because I felt like I enjoyed my communications classes. I enjoyed the people I went to school with, some of the stuff that I got to do, the opportunities that I had. I got to, intern at Care 11 during the summer of 2007 in the sports department. It was so much fun. Got to, meet and ask questions of all these different athletes. Johan Santana, that was the year KG got traded. Unfortunately, I was there to cover that. I remember Frank Thomas hit his 500th home run at the Metrodome, and I remember him walking through the door for his press conference, and he had to turn sideways because he was so big. Got Dale Earnhardt Jr. was at a racetrack in Wisconsin. Got to go cover and meet him, which was crazy. Never in my life thought I would get an opportunity for that. It was a big deal. It was a lot of fun, a lot of cool things, a lot of things I got to experience. Again, news reporter in South Dakota, sports reporter in North Dakota, covering UND, working for the Timberwolves and Lynx for a couple of years in the video department. A lot of cool stuff that I wouldn't have got to do. And again, it's not over. God has brought me different places through that. But what I'm saying is I was pursuing purpose in all of that. The entire time I was like, okay, my decision was I'm going to pursue broadcast journalism with the end goal of I'm going to have my own show where I'm going to bring on Christian athletes and allow them to share their platform, allow them to talk about God, about what he's done in their lives, about how they can help people. Because to me, I was like, the only time you really hear about athletes in the news is when they get in trouble. I was like, I know there's so many good athletes doing so many good things. Let's spend some time focusing on them. So that was kind of my goal. I do want to still do a video series where I bring on athletes. I've done a couple. I mentioned Darren Carrington in the last video I did. Jake Wenicky, who's a local kid from Maple Grove, he played in the CFL for a while. Great kid. He's in his 20s. But Jake's a great dude. I love him. But he did an interview with me. I'm hoping to do more over time. But I'm saying I was now in my purpose. And so I think a lot of us look at purpose as like a destination. Like when I get here, then I'm in my purpose. So does that mean I'm wasting the rest of my life until I get to this end point? No, what God showed me is that purpose is to be pursued in every season. There is purpose for you in every single season of life, and you have to continue to pursue that. And yes, with that end game in mind. And there were a lot of things that I did that I knew was like, this is pushing me towards what I want to do. There were seasons of life where I'm like, this doesn't feel like it's really pushing me in the right direction. But when I'm following God and trusting His plan, I know that He's getting me to where I need to go. Again, I say that I know because I believe that whether in the moment I see that or not. So it's a choice to believe God, to trust God. That's my tattoo. I think I did a video on it already talking about that. But to trust God in every season, to pursue God and His plan for my life in every season. What does that look like for you? What is the purpose that God has for you? And I'm not saying you have to figure out your career or at the end of your life what things will look like, but are you pursuing the purpose that God has for you in this season right now? I gave you the verse, delight yourself in the Lord, He should give you desires of your heart. Your desires are God-given, right? They're absolutely your right desires. Your desires, the passions that God put inside of you are God-given. So pursue those. Those are part of your purpose and why God put you on this earth. It's not a coincidence that you like what you like, that you're good at what you're good at, right? Music's an easy example. If you're good at music, create music that brings glory to the Lord. Sing in your church. Be a worship leader. Absolutely pursue that and develop those gifts and make the most of them so that you can impact people for Christ. Jeremiah 1:5 says that before I knew you, I formed you. I ordained you a prophet to the nation. God knew Jeremiah and knew who he was, that he was going to be a prophet before he was even born. He said when he put him together in his mom's womb, he knew he was going to be a prophet. So he put things inside of him to be a prophet. God did the same thing for you. When He created you, He put things inside of you. I talked about in the last video, identity, your gifts, your talents. If you're an introvert or an extrovert, male or female, your hair color, your eye color, your height, He gave you those things on purpose because He knew the plan and purpose that He had for you. And you need to continue to walk that out. And you are different than the people sitting next to you because you are created differently. You have a different purpose for everyone else around you. Even if it's a similar thing, right? Career field, your life is different, right? It's easy to look at, in the NFL, there's all these different positions, all of these people that are playing football at a professional level. And if you tell me that a kicker and an offensive lineman, you look at some of these guys could be as different as night and day as far as what they look like, but they were given what they needed. They were created to play professional football. So even if you're on the same field, in the same career field as people, it's going to look different for you. And so you need to pursue what God put in you, and you need to pursue what God is telling you to do. I can't be someone else. The best I can do if I'm trying to be someone else is a bad version of them. But I can be the best Josh Coan that ever walked this earth. I guess I don't know, maybe there's other people that have had that name before, but I can be me, the best version of me. God doesn't want to change you into somebody else. He wants you to be the best version of who He created you to be. And that's the way that you're going to get to this purpose and this plan that He has for you. In every season of life, when you continue to pursue purpose, He's going to get you to that next place, to get you to the ultimate purpose. I love the story of David. You've heard me talk about him probably before, if you know me especially. But especially, in Acts, there's a verse that says that when David fulfilled his purpose on this earth, God's purpose for him, for his generation, he fell asleep and was buried with his ancestors. That's what I want said about me at my funeral. At the end of the day, I want people to say he fulfilled his purpose on this earth. And I don't mean that like I said, at the end of the day, I've made so much money or approached some level of fame. I mean, as I'm living in every single step. When you think about David, he was serving his purpose faithfully in the field. He was serving his purpose in the palace, playing music for King Saul. He was serving his purpose, obviously killing Goliath, serving in the military. And then as king, he was serving his purpose in every single season of his life. And that's what you need to do. You need to pursue the purpose that God has for you in every single season of life. And again, it's going to look different for different people. I like to use the example of like a football or basketball. Similar things. They're both, their balls, they're filled with air, wrapped in leather. But a football is shaped differently than a basketball because it has a different role, right? Football's got to be tucked under your arm. It's got to be thrown. Basketball should be bounced. You shoot it differently because they have different purposes. They're similar, but they have different purposes. You have a different purpose than me and the person sitting next to you, the family members, friends. You all have a different purpose. You created unique for a unique purpose. And God knew that purpose when he created you, like Jeremiah. Like he said to Jeremiah, he knew that purpose. That's why he put those things inside of you that you have. But you have to pursue that purpose. It's not going to happen automatically. I love saying this: greatness is inside each and every one of you. God created you to be great. Even if you don't know it, you might not understand that. You might not think that because you look at somebody else and your definition of greatness is different for them than it would be for you. But whatever God created you to do, he created you to be great at it. But greatness doesn't happen automatically. Greatness takes something. It takes a little bit more. You got to put in the effort. You got to, yes, maximize your strengths, but you got to minimize your weaknesses. You got to put in the effort that it takes to pursue the things that God has for you. So that's why I say purpose is pursued. Purpose is not something that happens automatically, but it should be pursued in every season of life. And I say, if you pursue what God has for you in this season, he'll get you to the next season, and he'll get you to the next and the next, to the different places that you need to go when you pursue his purpose. In 2020, actually it's the end of 2019, which I had no idea what 2020 was about to be in store, but God gave me, I was praying about a word for the year for 2020. And I told God I would like it to be the year of pursuit. And God was like, okay. And I was surprised. I was like, oh, I didn't expect you to actually allow me to do that. But in my mind, we just moved back from San Diego, and I was like, this is it. I'm back in Minnesota. I'm going to pursue exactly what God has for me. My book was about to come out, so I was trying to sell that. I was trying to do these things. I had ideas of what this pursuit was, but God said, I'm going to give you 4 things that you have to pursue, and when you pursue those things in that order, then you'll get all that I have for you in this year. And those 4 things ended up being more of a pursuit in my life that I do in every single season. But let me read those 4 things to you. The first thing that God told me to pursue was the presence of God. In every single season of life, pursue the presence of God. That's what we're created for. Ultimately, that's what we should be doing. And no matter what season of life you are in, pursue God. That is your purpose, is to pursue the presence of God. Spending time with God. God, we were created in the image of God, the likeness of God, so that we could spend time with him. That's why we were created. That is your ultimate purpose here on earth, is to spend time with God, to pursue his presence. The second thing that he told me to pursue was pursue his people. In every season of life, people are the most important thing in your life. People are the only thing you can take with you to eternity. God put specific people in your life for a specific reason. You need to pursue relationships with them. You need to pursue, how can I impact people? Every situation I get into, every person that I talk to, my goal is that they leave better than when I started the conversation with them. Yeah, sometimes that does mean I got to tell them hard things. That's something I'm working on. I'm not great at difficult conversations, but ultimately that'll end up better for them, right? So I want every person to be better having interacted with me than before they did. And that's just part of my purpose. In every single season, you are called to the people that are in that season for your life for a reason. For me right now, I'm the internship coordinator at my church. There are 13 interns that I absolutely have a chance to impact their lives for the next, 6-7 months through May. I have a chance to impact their lives. So I'm gonna do everything I can during that time to impact them and to help them move closer to God. The third thing God told me is to pursue peace. Peace does not happen automatically. Contentment does not happen automatically. You have to pursue it. You have to seek it. You have to be intentional. You have to decide to be content, to be at peace. It's not something that happens automatically. Even the Bible, when it says the peace of God surpasses all understanding, shall guard your hearts and mind, it starts with, when you're anxious, give it to God, pray about it, in all thankfulness, pray about it, and then the peace comes. When you give it up to God, when you're thankful and you pray, then the peace can come. It's an active thing. It's not just gonna automatically, if I'm just sitting here on my own doing my own thing, I'm not all of a sudden gonna feel this overwhelming peace from God unless I do something. It's an active thing. It's something you have to pursue in life. Sometimes it's hard. It's hard to find that peace. It's hard to find content. Paul said, though, in Philippians, that he found basically the secret to success in life. He said, I've learned to be content in every situation, good or bad, rich or poor. I am content right here where I am. In this season, I am content. And it's a decision. It's something you got to do. It's not going to happen automatically, right? The last thing that God said is you can pursue your passions. When you've done all those things, pursue your passions, because your passions are God-given. He put things in my heart that I'm going to pursue, that I'm going to do, because I believe they're absolutely what God created me to do. And so the passions, those things that burn you, and I say that in the things you love, but also the things you hate. What's something that really bothers you? In 1 Samuel, when we see David taking on Goliath, he says to his brothers, is there not a cause? He knew that this giant was a cause worth fighting. Is there something in your life that you look out and you see, is there a cause? Is there something that just really bothers me? Is it racism? Is it lack of education? Is it poverty? What is it in your life that just bothers you? And yeah, those things might seem big, right? Goliath was big, but David didn't go out there on his own strength. He went out there with God on his side to tackle that giant. And God wants to do the same thing for you. He wants you to pursue the cause. He wants you to ask, is there not a cause? He wants you to look around the world around you and see the hopelessness that is the world that we live, and he wants to bring his hope into that world. He wants you to make a difference. He wants you to fight for that cause. David didn't wait till he was king. David became king of a nation, but he fought for his cause way before he was king, way before he ever had a kingdom. He was just a little shepherd boy that knew that God had a plan and a purpose for his life. And so he pursued that, and he fought after that cause, that thing that bothered him so much. Every other person in the Israelite army was okay to just hide from Goliath, was okay. And David heard Goliath and said, I'm not okay with just sitting back and watching these things happen to my people. And he went and fought, and he did something, and he took down that giant. There is a purpose for you in this season, and it has to do with the passions that are burning inside of you. If there's something that really just irks you and gets you going, maybe it is in the political realm, maybe it is at the church, maybe it is, it could be a lot of different things. Take your pick. There's a lot of stuff wrong with the world right now. If something bothers you, don't just think, oh, somebody else will do it. If something bothers you, God probably wants to use you to do something about it. Purpose is not a final destination. It's something that should be pursued in every single season. If you don't feel purpose in the season you're in right now, then pray about it. Then ask God, what should I be doing right now? And again, these 4 things: pursue his presence, his people, pursue peace, and pursue passion, your God-given desires. Pursue those things, and you will be on the right track to continue to fulfill his purpose for you on this earth. Remember, it's different than anybody else's. God gave you unique things. He created you unique because he has a unique plan and purpose for your life. So you need to pursue that purpose in every single season that you're in. Comment below what you think. If you got questions, comments, concerns, let me know. I'd love to have a conversation. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.